Good evening, everyone. So today we will discuss about the role of photography in conservation. So I have compiled a collection of photos, powerful photos. Most of them you may have seen already somewhere in the social media or in publications or newspapers. And we will discuss also the stories that are coming with those photos. And in this way, to illustrate the impact that those photos had and the importance that those photos played in protecting the nature, protecting the wildlife, protecting the environment. Many, or actually most of the photos that we will see tonight are not mine, are from some really well-known and important photographers. When it will be clear who is the photographer, so in each of the slides I have the name of the photographer, I put credits, so there is no question, there is no gray thing that who is the photographer and who is the owner of the photo. And also, if someone is interested, at the end of the presentation, I have a collection of references and links of what I will discuss today came from those links. So if someone is interested, we can find a way to distribute to you all those links and references. So,
for personal use only.
Okay, no, it's because there's an OK sign up.
Okay.
No, I'll get it for you.
Okay.
Shall we try that?
Okay, good. So, here it's not nature, but these are some of the most, I chose some of the most recognizable photos of all times. So I'm sure the most of you recognize, if not all of them, some of them. Why? I'm trying to set the stage. The photography has power. The photos tell stories in a language that is universal and goes beyond cultural or linguistic barriers. And the photography has the power to change perspectives and has the power to force social and political change. And now getting into our subject for today, about conservation photography. First of all, what is conservation photography and how is this different from nature photography or wildlife photography? Gary touched this in the introduction. So, wildlife photography or nature photography is about most of the times it's about nice photos. But conservation photography is about the purpose, is about the impact. So, conservation photography has a purpose to raise awareness and empathy to wide audiences, has the purpose to inform and force changes in policies and in laws. And also, conservation photography has the purpose to support scientific research, provide documentation and evidence for the scientific research. And let's go into the main topic of today. So, as early as 1871, the photographer William Henry Jackson, with his work, contributed in the laws and regulations for protecting the first national park in the United States in the world, the Yosemite National Park. So, in 1871, the US federal government paid for first time ever, a geological survey in that area where is the Yellowstone Park today. This survey was headed by Hayden, the full name Ferdinand van de Veer Hayden. So that was the geologist who was the head of the team. The team consisted of 32 people. 2 of them were one photographer, the William Jackson, and one painter, Thomas Moran. And the survey took place from around May until end of October of 1871. Immediately after coming back, the photos and the paintings were placed directly on the desks of the US Congress members. And of course, together with all the other scientific findings, the photos and the visual proof of what exists in that area, this helped and the Yellowstone National Park became a reality. And next we have some more photos of that work. So we see here the team of the 33 people with their horses and carrying all their houses together with them to live around. We have a geyser. I think this is the Grotto geyser. It must be a very well-known geyser in Yellowstone, and you know, a waterfall. And you can imagine how difficult it was in 1871 to get photos. I mean, this guy was carrying what I'm carrying now. It's very light compared to what he was carrying. I mean, his equipment should be 50 kilos or something. And each photo was taken maybe 10 minutes to be taken. Our next story is, of course, more recent. It's about the starving polar bear in 2017. So, Christina Mittermeier and Paul Nicklen were part of the Sea Legacy Conservation team that they were trying to document the impact of the climate change, and they were in the summer of 2017 in the north of Canada, in the Canadian Arctic, where they saw this skinny polar bear. Christina took the photos and Paul took videos. The encounter was just a few minutes with the bear. Paul immediately published this video on his Instagram account, but he didn't make any direct connection with the climate change and the situation of this polar bear. But then National Geographic took the video and published the video on their website with the caption, "This is what climate change looks like." And immediately after this, other media outlets took this video, took this story, all the big newspapers, New York Times, Guardian, everybody, BBC, and this became viral. It was the video with the most views on the National Geographic website, and in total, together with the other publications, it reached 2.5 billion people. But this caption raised some controversy because there was no direct connection. Someone could not say that this specific polar bear died or was in this situation because of the climate crisis. Maybe there was some other reasons about this specific polar bear. However, the photo and the video did their job. Everybody in the world knew about the problem of the climate crisis, the climate change, and how this affects the Arctic. And of course, then there were publications and the scientists came up and provided the scientific evidence that the climate change affect the ice in the Arctic, and this then affects the polar bears and the food and everything. So the photo and the videos made their job, and that was the impact and the result of this work. Then we are moving to the middle of the Pacific. Again, this is a photo that was everywhere in the media and social media and newspapers, the birds with the plastic in their stomachs. So the photographer Chris Jordan was working to document the big places of plastic in the Pacific Ocean. Probably you know that there are places that you can find huge quantities of plastics. Because of the currents, because of the winds, there are places that it's full, in the middle of the sea, full of plastics. So Chris Jordan traveled to Midway Atoll, which is a cluster of islands in the Central Pacific. Very far away from there, 2,000 miles is the nearest land. So he went there to find these areas with plastic. When he landed in the islands, he found birds like this. So his initial plan somehow changed. So now he started to try to understand what is happening, started taking photos, and he traveled in the 4 years, he traveled in total 8 times in those islands. And of course, his work later was published everywhere. I mean, in BBC, Blue Planet 2, Netflix, everywhere in the social media. And his work was instrumental in lobbying against the single-use plastics. So, of course, other works and other people worked towards this target, but those photos made great job in supporting the ban of single-use plastics. And here are some more photos of this project. So this is how the islands look like when the albatross go to breed. I don't know if you have seen places where those birds go to breed. So those remote islands away from humans, you can see thousands or in many thousands of birds. This is how it looks like. So this is how it was the place that Chris Jordan landed. Here is an albatross with a young chick, and here is a young chick. This is a chick. This didn't fly, never fly. It's so young. It doesn't even have wings. So this is what was found in his stomach. So even without flying, even without going to find food by itself, from the food that the parents brought to feed it, it was in this situation. And of course, it died because, you understand, if you have so much plastic in your stomach, there is no space for real food. Again, another very well-known and very strong image by Brent Stearton in Congo. So in July of 2007, they found 5 mountain gorillas killed, a silverback alpha male and 4 females. The 2 of the females had babies and another one was pregnant. So what was happening there? there is a city that was in the Virunga National Park. So close to the Virunga National Park, there is a city called Goma. So Goma was a big market for charcoal. Actually, around that time, 2007, the market of the charcoal in Goma was around $30 million per year. And illegal traders, and actually they had actually formed a mafia, and they were going to the Virunga National Park to cut down the trees to produce charcoal to sell to Goma. And this charcoal mafia in many cases were threatening the officers of the national park and their agents who were trying to protect the park, and the killing of the 5 gorillas was a way for threatening them. So Brent Stirton was there, took those photos, and of course those photos again became viral. National Geographic published them, all the big news outlets published them, and this situation took publicity. Everybody knew on what is happening. So the government of Congo had no other choice but to take measures. So they completely changed the security of the park. They put more officers, and actually in this way they managed to save the park from collapsing. And here are some more photos. Here is the locals and the and the rangers that found one of the gorillas. And here is a baby. The baby was named Ndkasi and Kasi. So it was one of the 2 babies that was found together with the 4 females. And it was taken in an orphanage, and here is with its caregiver, and actually they were sleeping together. It's a photo that they're preparing the bed to go to sleep. This is another story of not a pleasant one. It's recent, and I remember this very well, and I believe many of us remember this situation. So the Gulf of Mexico is a hotspot for biodiversity, and more than 2 billion birds migrate across the Gulf of Mexico every year. So in 20th of April in 2010, there was a big spill of more than 200 million gallons of crude oil in the Gulf of Mexico. And Win McNamee, with many other photographers, went there and they covered this situation, and photos like this again were everywhere. So the public outrage and the media attention led to changes in environmental regulation, put pressure on the oil companies, and I think it was BP at that time, and BP paid so much money for cleaning this quickly, and also paid money back in the government as a penalty or something. And again, we see photos like this have so much power. Here, this is one of the most recent stories. So the monarchs butterflies can be found in many places in the world. So the population in the Americas is very well known for the long migration. So they breed in the northeast of the United States, in spring and summer, and then in autumn they migrate west and southwest towards California, south of California and Mexico. So they may migrate up to 3,000 miles. And the scientists measured that since the 90s, the population dropped by 90%. Why? Because of the pesticides, the milkweed plants were destroyed, and the milkweed plants is the main food for the caterpillars. That was one reason. The second reason was because of the climate change. In autumn there are droughts and very hot seasons, and the result of this is that in the areas that the butterflies pass during the migration, there is no food. There are no plants for them to feed. So they die. So what the conservationists and of course Jamie Rojo was involved and trying to do, so Rojo spent 20 years working with the monarchs. So they actually engaged with the local communities and empowered them first to stop using or reduce the use of pesticides, and second, to plant milkweed for the caterpillars. And according to Jamie Rojo, this is one of the rare cases in conservation that the citizens, the simple people, can actually have some significant contribution in conservation. And again, the work of Jamie Rojo was everywhere. So just a simple Google search, of course there is extensive coverage of this story in National Geographic, but also in social media and all the big newspapers. Those stories were everywhere. And here are some more photos. So this is a caterpillar. Here are some scientists, flagging the milkweed plants, and this is how the butterflies are gathering before they start the migration. So either in the northeast states or in the Mexico. So they gather all together and they literally cover whole trees. So they don't leave a single centimeter or a single inch of the tree uncovered. So, and this is how it looks like. This is another devastating story. This is, again, here we have a single image. In many cases we have stories, we have some photographers that are working for years on a subject. In other cases we have just one image, still very powerful. And this is one of those cases. So, in 1993, there was a devastating famine in Sudan because of the war and because of the environmental situation and climate situation. And I can accept that this is not a story or not a photo directly related with environment or wildlife. Okay, we have a vulture here, but this is not a nature photo. However, because the famine was affected by the droughts and the desertification in this part of Africa, I thought it's relevant and I included this in this presentation. So Kevin Carter was there, took the photo. The photo appeared in the New York Times on March 26, 1993. After this, Of course, it was New York Times. Everybody took this photo, and this photo was everywhere. And 4 months later, or 6 months later, Kevin Costner won the Pulitzer Prize for this photo. And 3 months later, after he won the Pulitzer, he committed suicide at the age of 33 because of the suffering and the trauma he witnessed in Sudan. Still, he did his work, so he exposed internationally the situation in Sudan. It's true, it's a sad truth, but it's true that in the West, in many cases, we don't know what is happening in Africa. Especially in 1993, where there was no internet, there was no social media, nothing. Nobody knew what is happening in Sudan. But with this photo, Kevin Costner managed to bring this problem to the attention of everyone. And very quickly, help from everywhere in the world was directed to Sudan, and maybe the West, we didn't solve the problems of Sudan, because the Sudan still until today has problems, but it was some help for those people. The story is that initially it was reported that it was a girl. So it was not a girl, it was a boy. The father of the boy came in 2011 and reported that the boy was taken care by the United Nations officers that were close by. They took care of the boy, they fed it, it was okay. However, the boy died in 2007 from other reasons, because the situation was never really improved. Some other strong photos, and we see I started speaking about the difference between conservation photography and nature photography. Nature photography is about nice photos. In conservation, most of the times the photos are shocking. So we saw Brent Stearton earlier with the gorillas. This guy has done amazing work in many places in Africa. So he worked from 2010 until 2016 documenting the rhino crisis. So the horn of the rhinos has been used in traditional medicine in countries in Asia since 2,000 years. And the last 30 years that there is economic rise, especially in China and Vietnam, this became a really big problem for the rhinos. To give you some idea, the price of the rhino horns in black market is comparable to gold. And I will give you some numbers. So, in Vietnam, around close to 2010, 10 grams of rhino horn costed in the black market, because it was illegal, 10 grams of rhino horn costed $2,500 US for the locals, and could reach to $8,500 for foreigners. Just 100 grams of rhino horn. So for those illegal traders and poachers, we are speaking about big money. And this created the rhino crisis. So the rhinos, the population of the rhinos decreased by 96% between the 97, the 70s and the 90s. So it reached the lowest level of the numbers of the rhinos reached the lowest level in 95 with 2,500 individuals. Since then, it has recovered. So today we are speaking about 6,000 rhinos. And the work of Brent Dearton, of course, with many others, conservationists, have helped to this. So again, this work was presented in National Geographic, in all the big outlets, social media, everywhere, and this made this environmental crisis visible to everyone. Here on the left we have two poachers. They were arrested in Mozambique in 2016. One is, I think this one is the younger, 19 years old, and the other is 28. This is another photo of Brent Dearton taken in 2010 in Kenya in Ol Pejeta Conservancy. So this is the northern white rhino, subspecies of the white rhino. In 2010, there were 8 individuals of this subspecies in the world. The 4 of them were in this conservancy in Kenya, and 4 armed soldiers were guarding them 24/7. And there were many photos around with how those soldiers became, family basically with the northern white rhinos. And so until now we saw how those, in some cases, not pleasant photos played their role in raising awareness and empathy in wider public audiences, and how they force policymakers in changing regulations and changing laws. Now we will go to some more nice photos and we will see how conservation photography can support scientific science, providing documentation and providing evidence. And the photos here are all for my projects. And we are starting from a survey for sooty falcon that I participated. So it was a survey in the north of the Red Sea, in the area that is Neom today. So this falcon, the sooty falcon, lives between Madagascar and the Arabian Peninsula. They spend the winter in Madagascar, all the population of the sooty falcons, and then they are coming during the spring and summer around the Arabian Peninsula to breed. So we were in a survey in those rocky islands in the north of the Red Sea at the end of the breeding period, basically to count the breeding pairs, find nests, and count chicks, and in this way to see how the population is going. So that was my favorite. Basically, I was a photographer and were 2 more scientists, and we were all together going to those islands around. So this is my favorite photo from this work. Here are some other photos, some nice photos, and also we had, of course, photos of juveniles in the nest and some nests with eggs. And of course, those photos were part of the final report, so someone could see not only numbers and text, which of course is important because this is the scientific evidence, but also they could see how are the nests, how is the habitat that those birds are living. A second project that I have been involved a little is the UAE dolphin project of our member Ada Anatoli. Many of you you know her already. So those are some nice photos from a survey we did for the Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphin. This is here in Dubai. So what I was doing as a photographer in this project, so here are fins of dolphins. You can see that the fins, they have scratches, they have marks, all of them. And those scratches and marks are unique for each individual. So you can use this So this individual here is different than this individual and is different than this individual. So those scratches here, you see the shapes are totally different. And in this way, the scientists can say who is who. They can see a group and they can count in a safe way. If you have photos like this, you can count the individuals. Or if you go in a survey in an area today and then 3 months later and 6 months later, you know if this individual is coming back or just appeared once and never came back. And of course, these are important. This is the work of the scientists when they are trying to understand how this species is living in this area. And finally, some of the work I'm doing with DDCR. I have set up some trail cameras. So what are the trail cameras? The trail cameras are small boxes which are very well sealed from the weather. Water cannot go in, sand cannot go in, and they have a camera, not a very good camera, but good enough, and a sensor. So you put the camera somewhere out in the wild, and when an animal passes by, triggers the photo. And in this way, because you cannot stay somewhere for months or for years to see what animals are coming, are passing by, you put this camera, you leave the camera there, you go 6 months later, you take the memory card and you see what was there. Similarly, you use these cameras for night, recordings, because the nocturnal animals, you cannot see them in the day, and at night you cannot see them because it's dark. So this is the only way to see if in an area you have foxes or if you have hares. You just put the camera, and this is the only way to see if they exist in this area, if they are present, and how many, and things like this. So in DDCR I have put some trail cameras, and we have some observations, and this helps, of course, in cooperation with the officers of the reserve, and this helps to understand how the wildlife of the reserve is going. And also sometimes you have some interesting encounters like this. This is a photo, but I have here the video. Yes, so this is a camera trap in the north of the DDCR in the Nazva area. It is those rocky hills. So the camera is, we put this camera in an area that is actually a passage for animals. So foxes pass from this path, and some gazelles, and in some cases also oryx, not very often. So the foxes have their dens in this rocky area, but also the pharaoh owls have their nests in this area. And apparently there is some kind of conflict here. So that photo was taken around January, if I remember well. There is a chance that the owl had chicks. So he was trying to keep the fox away from the chicks, and that was, an attack to make sure that she will stay, the fox will stay away. And I will close my presentation. Yeah. Yeah. The fox is so surprised. So I will close my presentation with a nice photo, still a very powerful photo. It's my favorite. I'm sure everybody has seen this photo. It's from 1968 from William Anders from the Apollo 8, the famous Earthrise. It was the first time that humanity saw how the Earth looks like from a distance. And it is widely credited that because of this photo, the Earth Day was established, and when the first Earth Day, 2 years later, 20 million people appeared in the first celebration of the Earth Day. And as Kathleen Rogers, the president of Earth Day, says, the Earthrise photo played a pivotal role in encouraging people to take part in environmental activism. And with this, I will close my presentation. Apologies if some of the photos were a bit strong. And
almost as powerful now
yes.
as when for those that I've seen.
Yes, and this is what I was saying about the links and the references. If someone wants to check, whatever I presented today is coming from all those sources. And thank you.